Okay, welcome back to part 2. This part is going to be more based on the units and how to actually get battles started and a little bit into basics of triggers and tags, which if you don't know anything about triggers and tags but you do know how to set battles, I still recommend watching because the basics I'll be covering on triggers and tags will be the foundation for every other video to come after this with more in-depth concepts. But right away, I'm just going to load up a map. F2 is how you load up any of the maps you want. I'm just going to load up a multiplayer map. Once again, I am using a couple of mods, such as the Halo mod that you can see right now, and reworked factions. You may or may not have some of these, but you can still do everything I'm doing because I'm going to do them with mostly vanilla assets. So do not worry about that. But both the mods I am using can be found on the Steam Workshop if you would like them. Although loading into this map, I'm just going to give it an environment. Once again, that's F6 in case you forgot or did not watch the last video. Doesn't matter which one you use. But F3, last video we focused on F2 for actual map editing, since that is what creates the maps. But this video, F3, obviously if you select, not going to select anything. You only want to ever do battles and missions in F3 when spawning vehicles and humans. Never do it in F2. It's just not good. You save it to the map instead of the battle, and it makes your life way harder if you ever try to edit it after that. It's kind of harder to explain unless you already understand the game, but you'll just have to take my word on that to not do it. Nonetheless, though, we are going to get right into it in F3 once again. I'm going to go to multiplayer, spawn a couple units. These are where you'll find most of your units in case you don't know. You can scroll all the way through this for whatever you want, and your units will be here. These are just some basic U.S. Marines. Now, if we spawn other units, let's say we want them to fight Russians, we'll get some of them and flip them around. Okay, so now, as you can see, if we were to put these here, nobody's attacking each other. Well, let's say we wanted them to. The issue is that they're on the same faction currently. How we know that, there's a couple ways to tell. One, we can select both these units at the same time. If you can select two different groups of units at the same time, that means they're on the same team. So how do you change team? In the top left, you'll see, it's sort of hard to see, but there's a 0. That's a gray box. That's the team you currently are. So use your numpad, and you may need to unlock or lock your numpad for this to work. Depends on your keyboard and the key bindings that are defaulted to CTA or any other gem engine-based game. But if you hit 1, it'll go to team 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so forth. And as you can see, we can't select these guys now, and on the minimap, they're red, which means they're enemies. So 0, they're both blue. We can select both of them. They're on the same team. So changing the team is going to work like this. Yeah, let me just get rid of some of these guys. If you select the units you want to change the team to, so we'll just select all these guys. You know they're selected because there's a white circle around them, which means we have them selected. And right here where properties is, you say it says 7 humans. We have 7 humans selected, so that's good. We got all of them. Now, if you go to player, you can change this to what team you want them to be. Currently, they're 0, so if you change to 1, you'll see they get the red circle indicating 1. And if we go back here now and hit player 0, we can select these guys. We can't select these guys, and they're red. And if you look on the minimap, they're also red. By the way, if you don't like this little clipping where you can see their feet in the bottom right, this little double human silhouette, if you click that, it goes away. But if you want them, then you'll still be able to see them through the map. It's only if your guys can see them. And same thing applies to your units where they're blue. If you get rid of that, it's gone. I think it's annoying, but if you like it, then you can leave it. Now, if we were to tell these guys to fight, as you can see, they'll shoot each other for both teams. Pretty straightforward. But obviously, they're not actually fighting each other right now. I told them to shoot each other, they did, and that was it. If you want them to properly fight, in the top left, there's a start button. Once you hit start, that turns on all the AI. So if you hit start and these guys are on different teams, they'll start to fight. So without further ado, there you go. All right, guys are going to fight. And obviously, you can change between teams if you hit 0 to control these guys, or hit 1, and these guys are actually still alive. Now, once you're done with this battle, you just hit finish, and it reloads the entire map and mission to before you hit start. So if you make any changes during a battle, no matter what you do to the map, you could delete every prop and try to save the map. Once you hit finish, it will inadvertently go back to exactly how it was before you hit start, which is nice in case you fuck some things up. Now, continuing on for a couple more advanced things when it comes to these units. So let's say you want some of these guys to stay still. Because obviously when I hit start, you can see they started running around and do whatnot. So if you select all your guys, once again we know they're selected, you can go down here to movement mode and put it on hold. And that means these guys will still shoot, but they won't be running around free roaming. I'm not going to showcase that because I know it works, but you can mess with that as you like. This works best for if you have units behind cover, like say this wall over here. By the way, it's Control-C and Control-V to paste, copy and paste. But if you got guys here and you had their movement mode on free, if there were units over here, a couple seconds into the battle, all these guys are going to get off this wall and just start running around. But if you have them on hold, then they're going to stay in this cover, which you probably have done if you've played the normal game where you can change movement mode here. But the easiest way to do that is just, select all your units and then change it there. A couple other options you do have with that is you can put them on zone. Zone means they will move, but only within a certain area. I don't exactly know the units for the movement radius, but 7 to 15 is probably a good range to put them in. It might be based on polygons. I don't know, kind of a guess on my part. Most people don't use zone, but if you want it is there. One last thing that can be handy, let's say your Russians are the ones pushing the defensive objective, and I don't know, you have units on defense that aren't moving. If you put them to no retreat, this means that these guys will never fall back. So if they are supposed to be the attacking force, they will always attack. Because sometimes the AI, if they're outnumbered or hurt, they will try to fall back for cover. But if you put no retreat on, they never will. It doesn't mean they'll non-stop run, but it just means when they move, it won't be backwards. You can also change the rate at which they move forwards or backwards with the advance ratio and retreat ratio. You can mess with that as much as you want. 5 is normally a good one. 2 is the default, but once again, that is up to you. If you want to change text mods on vehicles or players, it works the same way as it did if you watched the previous video. You select them. You can come down here to where it says text mods. There's no text mods for the Russians. There may or may not be text mods for certain people. I believe this is because these are modded units, but I know these are not. So if you come here, text mods, drop down menu, you got desert and winter. So you can change those if they're there. If there's no drop down, that just means your units don't have text mods. Doesn't mean your game's broke or anything, or you did anything wrong. That's also an option. Works same for vehicles though, so double check that if you want map specific like this one where they're in a desert, so I may as well put that there, and so forth. Now, let's get into a little bit of scripting and trigger making. So if you wanted a bigger battle, so let's say, let's get a couple of guys over here. And then let's set up some vehicles for them. Just to keep things interesting. Just going to crew all these real quick. Oh, a little too much over there. Once again, if you ever need to undo anything, Control-Z can undo that like I just did. Well, you can only undo certain things. Like if you blow up a vehicle, Control-Z, it might crash the game. Or it might reset it. I don't know. Kind of 50-50. Have fun with it. Just going to change these to desert so they look nice. And then we'll go over here to our Russian friends. And we will give them these. Perfect. Give them some units. Keep in mind, if vehicles are defaulted to no player selected, then they'll automatically change to the team of the player that gets in them. But if they are selected to a different team, then that player can't get into it. So if I set these vehicles to player 2 or player 0 specifically, the Russians wouldn't be able to get in. If I change them now, it forces those units out because they're not on the same team. And there's only a special exception if they are allies but not the same team, but I will cover that in a different video, because it's not really worth getting into now. Alright, so triggers and tags. So here's where you need triggers and tags, at least in this situation. If we start this battle, and let's say we want to tell all the Russians, select all of them to go fight the US. The issue is you can only select a certain amount of units. So I try to select all this infantry. It only grabs, it's either 10 or 11 of them at once. So you can't select all of them. All the vehicles you can select, but you can't select the whole force at once. So if we wanted them all to go over there, it's not going to work too well. So that's why we need a trigger and a tag. So a tag is just a way to identify and be able to call upon these units specifically. So to do that, we're going to select all of our units, and you either can hit U and then go to tags, or you can hit Control-T, which is quicker, and you can name it whatever you want as long as you know this name is going to identify whatever units you have selected. So it's going to do Russia. As you can see, a green name will pop up above them that says Russia. If you don't want that for certain units that you did give the tag to, you can click it and hit remove, or if you gave it to all units but some. Let's say we forgot some infantry down here, and as you can see, there's now a gap in the tags. You can always select everyone, hit Russia, and hit add, and it'll add it to anyone that doesn't have it. So now all these guys are named Russia. And then let's go over here, same thing, Control T. Except we don't need these guns in here, but it wouldn't hurt to have them either way. Okay, Control T. We can do USA. I'm just gonna set these guys to no retreat so that when they inevitably do hit combat, they don't just start running around like assholes. Okay, now that we did that, we gotta have a waypoint that tells them to head towards the other team. Otherwise, the tag doesn't do anything. Right now, the tag only says, you know, USA applies to all these units, but we're not telling them to do anything. So we need a waypoint. We're going to hit add and make sure auto link is checked. It's going to be the first waypoint. After you put the first one down, this number is just going to correspond to that waypoint, which will come in handy in a few minutes. You select that waypoint and then hit add. And this means that the next waypoint will be linked to this one. So this yellow line then means after the units hit 0, they'll continue on to 1. Because if these were unlinked like this and you hit 0, they'll stop at 0 and won't go to 1. Now, if you do place waypoints down and they aren't linked, the easiest way to do it is either delete this and select this and then go back to add. Or if you have two separate ones and want to connect them, you can always select one, hold shift, select the other, and then click the link button. And unlink also works the same. And then we'll add on from there. Perfect. And now we'll do the same thing for the Russians. Give them a waypoint, select that, add. And then they will meet somewhere in the middle, obviously. Now, we've got our waypoint. We've got our tags that call upon these units. Now we need to tell the units to go to that waypoint. We're going to use a trigger. A trigger is going to be what executes whatever commands you want. So you're going to select this one that looks like the little line with the 290-degree turns. Right-click in triggers, hit add, name it, once again, whatever you want. I'm just going to name it start. It doesn't matter what you name it. It doesn't have to be start to start at start. That's a lot, but whatever. You name it whatever you want. So you're going to go down to commands, right-click in that box. Commands is going to be what is actually being executed. We'll ignore conditions for now and get into that into more advanced videos. So for waypoints, you're going to want to go to other, and then specifically actor to waypoint. Hit OK. Now, your selector, you're going to hit this drop-down menu, and the tag is going to be the tag of the unit that you want this command to apply to. So we're going to do US first, since we're just on this side. Hit OK. Now it's going to say, what waypoint do we want US to go to? Well, let's check. Let's go back to waypoint 0. Cool. So we want them to just start at 0 because it's the first waypoint. So we're just going to put 0. We're ignore clone, ignore drop, and now approach is pretty important. You're only going to usually use either force or teleport and rotate. So we're going to use force in this case because what force means is these units will start wherever they are and then walk. They'll get there. So these guys will walk to 0 and the vehicles will drive to 0, and that's how they get there. If you do teleport and rotate, that means that these units will automatically teleport to waypoint 0 and then carry on, which if you're using one vehicle, normally that's the best way to do it just because it makes it a little easier. But if you have a bunch of vehicles and infantry, that means all this infantry and vehicles would teleport to 0 at the same time and presumably just blow up. Obviously not what we want. So we're going to use force. Now, for the Russians, it's going to be the same concept. You can copy and paste commands, but I will just do it by hand. So your recently used ones will be up top, but if it's not, other, actor to waypoint, back down here, selector. This time it's going to be Russia. Their waypoint, let's check, it is 6. You always want to put the first waypoint in the series that you want them to go to, because they'll just continue on from there as long as they're linked. And then we'll hit force. And then from there, we are good to go. So we can hit start, and then immediately, all these guys are going to start heading over. And as you can see, all these guys now will move there instead of us needing to manually select, 4 different groups and then the units. And there you go. So that is going to be the basics of battles and actor to waypoints and all of those goodies. But as I said previously, in other videos we will get into much more advanced concepts. If you'd like to see anything specifically covered that you already know of or have an idea of and just want to see a video on it, let me know down below. If not, I'll just start putting videos out on concepts that I think are important and needed for beginners, and then I will work my way up as I deem certain things needed over others, such as objectives and how to make full missions and other things like such. But without further ado, thank you for watching. This is the end of the general overview of the editor. If I missed anything important, let me know down below. But hopefully you can have fun with this, and I will see you in the next video.